All right, welcome to the Iron Sharpening Iron Show. I'm your man, Big Jack. This is where we prove we are stronger together, that if each one will reach one, we can all grow and glow. And today is another beautiful day, and it's going to be a special day because we have a returning visitor. Guest who's been on our show probably a little bit over a month ago, but I don't believe we got all the way into the full conversation. So I wanted to make sure we get him back up on the stage. So we're going to look forward to that. Also, we've had a little brand change. So we're changing the brand a little bit with the Iron Sharpening Iron Show. It stays the same, but with the Iron Sharpening Iron Universe. So, and that's more the brand. So all those spinoffs fall under the Universe brand. So you got the Iron Sharpening Iron Show, you got the Gentleman's Journal, the Ladies' Diary, We Be Jamming Live, Coach's Corner, and the Battle of the Sexes all fall under the Iron Sharpening Iron Universe, and it's still produced by BBTV. And so we're moving in a great direction. What started as a show is now turned into a movement. And because of that, we're trying to move with it. So even the merchandise. So now you can go out and get all the shirts and all that's being produced, and it's all out there. So, but just letting you know, and even tuning in Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, we have the new trivia time with Big Jack. And if you haven't been catching on to that, you're missing out on some good experiences. I've been learning a lot, even researching the trivia question. So with all that being said, we're going to get this show kicked off, get my man up on the stage so we can get moving. And so tune in 1 second. Hold on. My man, Walt Talks, what's up?
My man, what's happening, Big Jack? How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm great, man. Anytime we can get up on the stage and conversate with each other, and we got a wonderful guest returning to us, so it's going to be a good day.
So nice. We had to do it twice. Absolutely.
I agree with that. I'm down with that. So, so how you been? How things?
Hey, man, I'm good. I'm just I feel like I've grown about 2 inches, man, since I'm now on the Big Jack, the Iron Sharpening Iron Universe. So congratulations on that again, man. I really, hey, man, I salute you. I love your grind, bro. I mean, you've been grinding, you've been putting in the work, getting the reps in, man. So congratulations on that, man. I just want to make sure I say that publicly. Wow, you are doing your thing. So I'm glad to be a part of it, man.
I was about to say those things right there. I'm glad that you are a part of
it. Well, man, every good band needs a tambourine player, man. So I'm just trying to, just play the tambourine, man, keep it moving, Absolutely.
Well, you got the tambourine, I got the triangle. We're still moving in the right
direction. No, you the drummer, baby. You the drummer, man. You are definitely keeping rhythm, man. You are keeping rhythm. Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
So we got a returner. So
yes.
Like I said earlier that I believe we didn't even scratch the surface with this man when we had him on before. So not that we can go all the way back, but I think we're going to go back a little bit. So I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to share with us today, and we're going to get him up on the stage. So you ready?
Yeah, man, my mind is still blown from the last conversation. So I'll be taking more copious notes, man. I'll be taking copious notes, trying to, figure it out and do my research. It gives us great context. But hey, man, everyone is in for a treat if you haven't seen him. So
all right, well, let's get him up on the stage then.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go. All right, Brian McMahon, welcome to the Iron Sharpening Iron Show. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, sir. Good to see you, Big Jack and Walt. I'm honored to visit the universe again. Greetings from the desert south of Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay, all right. No, welcome back. And yes, it is the Iron Sharpening Iron Universe. So since you've been here, a lot has changed. Excuse me. We've changed a little bit since you've been here. I mean, we've now crossed the 3,000 watch hours.
Yeah,
He
great.
was here. I don't even know what we had on subscribers. I think it's 2,600 something subscribers, which is good. We had over 200,000 views, and we crossed the 600 video posts. So a lot been going on, and we've been having a good time and enjoying ourselves every day. Every day, I'm loving it every day.
Well, I hope you're taking a rest once in a while.
Yeah.
Good luck with that, right?
The good thing is we have a good team. So we even added a new
Absolutely.
team member. So we got Mama
Yes.
Lions on the team, and we even added another spinoff. So those spinoffs do allow us to, I'll say, take a rest, but we're not up on the stage, so that changes. So when we do
Great.
the Ladies Diary, Boss B is the host of that show, and then the newest one coming out be the second. It's the second Sunday of the month, and so the second Sunday in October, right? No, what would it be? We passed that. So November
Remember,
will
yeah.
be the Coach's Corner, and Mama Lions will be hosting that show. So we'll get a break sometime in there, I'm sure.
You got a
Yeah.
network
Yeah,
going.
and that's the thing. It started as a show, but it turned into a movement, and that's what it is. So
Yeah.
we're trying to be able to deliver, and that's how I look at it. When you made that comment, I look at it as not like so much I got a YouTube channel. I got a YouTube cable company. Basically, when you go to your cable and you look at all the different channels that you can tune into, we want you to look at this the Iron Sharpening Iron universe like that. Like I'm going in, if whatever I want to see, I should be able to find it somewhere in that show or in that selection. So that's what we're trying to do. 100%.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So welcome back again. And so for those who didn't tune in, and shame on you for not tuning in on the first time you was here, can you give us a little description of yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself so we can kick back into the show?
Well, let's see. I was trained originally in liberal arts and philosophy, and when I was a kid, I studied a lot of martial arts, and so I spent a lot of my time teaching martial arts. And along that way, I became an artist, and I worked metal, and I've worked done life-size horse sculptures, and so I've done a lot of different things. My last job was running the water system for my town, the local town over past the hill here. But now I'm also a podcaster. I guess it's been about a year and some months when a guy that I've known for over 30 years came to me, and he said, "Hey, we should do a podcast." And so I've been rocking that for a year, and I'm up at about 70 episodes. We're called The Fools and Sages.
Fools and
And
Sages. I love that name.
I'm one of the resident fools, and then we bring in different folks. We've talked to different authors and different PhDs in philosophy, professors at universities, experts in, we just did one with a guy who's a doctor who's an expert in embodied cognition. Because, we like to talk about, we want to help people understand, how do you make sense of life? Things are moving so fast, and there's so many messages. We're bombarded from every direction. So we want to talk about things. Some of them go all the way back to 350 BC. We talk about Plato and Aristotle, and what did these guys think was happiness about? And then we talk to the people at the cutting edge of the science and what they think. We talked with Dr. Shapiro about happiness, consciousness, and free will, which philosophers have been talking about for millennia, right? Going back to the end of the BC times. But a lot of these things, a lot of practical things come out of it, like the implications of politics and the implications for ethics, for example. How should we treat each other? How do we get over the issues that are around us all the time now and all come out better for it? That's why I love the Iron Sharpening Iron universe, because it's all about that synergistic, we all do it together and we mutually illuminate. That's the plan, you totally hit on it. And so count me in.
Well, you in there
You
now.
in.
Know that. And you just said it, you know, that's our motto right there. We are stronger together. And if each one can reach one, we can all grow and glow. So, I mean, well, that's what we're pushing, that we can help each other get there. You know, it's not, as a matter of fact, that was one of the things you know, you say to my team, it's not a me, it's a we. It's not me. I don't have a channel. You know, that my name is because that's how they make you set it up, but it's not my channel. I have no problem getting off the stage and letting someone else have the stage, because the message, what we're trying to put out, the product is what we're putting out. And that is what we're trying to do, is put out a good product for whoever comes through, and anyone who come through and listen will walk away better than when they came in. And that's why we got you back.
Right.
So
Well, and that's how you know real leaders. You know, when you get to be our age, it's about who you further, who you help up, right? You know, that's why, like, for example, that's one of the things I love about Carlos Santana, is he's always bringing new artists up. He's always, you know, introducing new folks. He's not the main character all the time.
Right.
And that's really the right spirit, you know, and we'll all do better that way if we're not trying to be the main character of everything.
That's true.
Absolutely right.
100%. That is it. Yeah. And so thank you again for being here. And so I was intrigued by so many different things, and I wanted to have you back. So I know when last time we had you on the show, you walked us through all the different styles of I would say martial art, and if I'm saying it wrong, taekwondo, is that saying it right?
It started with taekwondo, yeah.
Taekwondo, yeah. But then you started talking about the sisters, the three sisters, and
and the internal arts, right.
And then we ended up in the Amazon. I believe we ended up in the Amazon.
That was another one of my chapters. Let's call it chapters. Although the martial arts has gone through has been a theme that runs all through it. The Amazon chapter was probably about 15 years. And before that, I had been trained in psychotherapy. And, you know, the whole theme in my life was, I guess I had this instinct that we could be doing things better. Right? Not that we haven't done them worse, and I'm happy we're doing them as well as we are, God knows. Right?
Yeah. Oh,
but I have an instinct we could be doing things better. And part of how we do that is sort of like understanding ourselves, and understanding when we optimize, then anything we do together is optimized. So I kind of had this idea. I started a nonprofit organization in 1984, and I wanted to sort of explore all these different ways that we're trying to understand how humans, not just how do we get better, but what are the things that get in the way. And we've all had childhoods that we had to live through, and understanding ourselves is, I was just joking with this about this with my wife, where I've been talking with some people about contemplative disciplines. And we did a great episode about the Muslim teacher Ibn al-Arabi, just dropped in the past couple of weeks. And they're all about the Sufis. They're all about contemplative disciplines. And we were joking about how you do this contemplative discipline, whether it's Buddhist or it's Christian or it's Muslim, and the idea as beginners, we say, oh, I'm going to see God, and I'm going to do and I'm going to see God. And the joke is, we do these contemplative disciplines, which honestly, they are not easy, right? And what do we see instead of God? Is we see ourselves, right? And we see all the different ways, the obscurations, and the ways that we could be better. So, you know, and that's what the shaman in the Amazon said. They said, you want to look at your life and see what's good and see what's not good, and pick what's good.
There you go.
And then you move that way. And it's like, that's pretty straightforward stuff, except we don't always see what's good. We don't always see what's not good. And that's why we need to build clarity. And that's why we need wisdom, right? And that's where philosophy comes in. We're understanding ourselves, because maybe something happens, but we want to understand something a certain way. For example, if I'm in a fight with somebody and I understand their psychology, I know I may be able to make them overconfident, right? I may be able to blow up their their perception of themselves, or I may be able to break their spirit and go the other way, right? But that first thing, it's all about the stability of the mind.
Right.
So we want to improve ourselves, and then that practice, we need to do it in a way, and that's what a kung fu school really is about. They call it a dojang in Korean, or a dojo in Japanese, or a kun in Chinese, but it's really about we're all getting better together. And we do that like iron sharpening iron, right? Because we don't do it by being weak on each other. We have to do it by holding each other to a standard. And sometimes believing that someone can do more than they even believe they can do. And that's what a good teacher is, right? The good teacher puts you in there, and you're in between the rock and the hard place, but he knows somehow you probably can handle it. Right. And, and I had a teacher who was a Green Beret. And so he'd seen men in many different circumstances. And there's a whole thing there. But the point is, we do want, and that's the idea of martial arts. It's not to be a warrior to go beating people up. It's so that we have the courage to really push ourselves, so that we can optimize, so that we can be the best that we can be. And that's not just an Army slogan. That's something that you can cruise through life. And, that's one of the things Thoreau used to say. A lot of people, they say, oh, I wish I was born rich. I wish I was born rich. Maybe I would win the lottery. Or maybe but Thoreau said it way back in the day. He said, to be born rich is to be stillborn.
Wow.
Because it's that struggle, it's that grind, right? It's that pushing and trying something. We're not sure we can do it, but we're going to pull down we're going to draw from our very heels, and then we're going to see, and we're going to triumph in the end. And then, and that's the same spirit of the shaman too, is you bring your consciousness into it, and you're impeccable as a warrior, which means you've gone through your weaknesses. You realize you have weaknesses, and you've taken steps to fill in those gaps, those chinks in the armor, So, and that's kind of like stepping up, right? That's like in the Jewish lineage, they would call it being a mensch, right? To be a mensch, or and this is another thing, that there used to be these ideas, right, that we go through a stage, a transition, a rite of passage, and then we'd say, okay, now you're a man, and you have to. When I became a black belt, you had to carry that belt, and that idea was you have some responsibility that goes along there, and we've entrusted some power in you. Don't do us wrong, right? Don't do us dirt. We just taught you all our stuff, and we don't want to have created a monster, so.
Very, very good points. I mean, a lot of times we, saying being honest with yourself and finding, that you have weaknesses, or you have things that you need to better. Like I say, I like seeing the good and the bad, and being able to tell the difference between the two, and let me improve on both of them. Not to make my bad worse, but to improve it, to make it better. But the things that I do well, I want to do them better. I want to get better at that as well,
Exactly.
And when you were talking about the mind, and I'm thinking back, this is my philosophy on that, because I playing football, I'm playing sports, but I'm saying 75% of the game is mental. I don't care what game you're playing. 75% of the game is mental.
And if you quit, if you quit, the reason you quit is up here.
It was all in your mind. Yeah.
It's never in your body.
And normally the sports I play have 4 quarters. So 3/4 of the game is all mental. Now the physical part comes down to, it could be in the first quarter, it could be in the last quarter, but it's just 1/4 of the game was the physical. Who was the strongest? Who had the bigger team? The bigger this. But if I can get in your head, I got you. I know I got you. I know that when it comes down to the last play of the game, and if you're not a person who believes that you can win, you won't. If you're that, and Walt, you definitely know. I call it liquid fairway. When you're out there playing golf, we play golf, and there's water in front of you.
Oh man!
And you say, "Don't hit it in the water. Don't hit it in the water." Well, I can promise you what you're getting ready to do. You're gonna hit it in the water.
Exactly.
You talk yourself into that shot. If you just look at it like I'm trying to hit this green, and what's there in front of me is that's just an obstacle that I have to get over.
Right.
But
right.
I don't want to say don't do that, because mentally I've just taken myself right into that water, 100%.
Oh boy.
So like the last thing you looked at is where that ball's going. So
Yeah.
look at the green then.
Yeah.
Then
No, I
stop
played
looking at
football too. Football's great to
Yeah.
teach that.
Oh yeah.
You know, I played offensive tackle.
Oh wow.
And there you are. You're standing right across. Somebody's going to try to make you look bad. Every possible
play.
physical thing he can do to make you look bad, and then he's going to do it again.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I
like-
back up and let's do it one more time. 100%.
It's
Yeah.
great training.
Yeah.
It's brutal sometimes,
So,
but
and you know, and like you say, I know in martial arts, it definitely has to be different because of the fact that, you know, you have your opponent across from you, and to psych them out, because like I say, we can all be physical, but the mental side of this, you know, the fight without the fight, you
mhm.
know, that, you know, not for me not to throw a punch and defeat you without throwing a punch. That's like, how did you pull that one off? You know,
right,
and
right.
and I, you know, so I've never done it, so I can't even act like you know, I've only heard people say that, you know, the fight without the fight. But I do remember Mike Tyson making a comment that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
In the
You know,
nose.
Boy. Oh boy.
yeah, so that right there is saying you have all the plan in the world. You come in there with you psych yourself out. And sometimes we try to psych ourselves out because, you know, if you don't believe that you can do it, if you don't believe that you're going to win, you lost before you even got in the ring.
Yep.
You know, and that's life, 100%. You know, when you go into a job interview or a project or anything, you should see yourself being successful, not, you know, you always, you know, you always say have a plan B, a plan C, a plan, but some of those plans are saying that the first one's not going to work. So you've already waiting for it not to work. So I have plan B and plan C.
Well, and having people a little bit ahead of you on the path, like, you know, in the Japanese school, they would call them dai senpai, which means like an older brother who've been through that. And they can look at you and they can say, yeah, I was there and it really sucked. And here's what I did. And I thought I was never going to get through it. And then eventually, son of a gun, if I didn't get through it. And sometimes those people there saying, suck it up, you got this, you know, they make a huge difference, you know, huge difference. You know, and that's also part of that function of a school, is that school, sometimes we're stronger. You know, that's the old story with the Chinese grandfather who teaches the sons with the bundle of chopsticks. He says, one by one, I can break these chopsticks easy. But when I take all of these chopsticks and I bundle them together, there's no way I can break them. So how are they going to break you all? They're going to separate you up and then break you one by one.
That's true.
And so, you know, and I bounced a lot when I was, you know, coming up, and having the right people at your back is the difference between going home at night or not and seeing your family. You know?
When you're saying bounce, you're talking about being a bouncer, like at a club or
like at a club.
Like
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of understood it, but I didn't want to make sure I didn't want to miss anything.
Yeah. Well, and that's that, you know, you're in an establishment. Your bosses, you can't spin kick somebody's face. Right. You have to kind of handle things, and you have to do it gracefully, if at all possible. And I didn't have a lot of heavy situations, and I was in a pretty small city and had my kids on the way, and I didn't want people having flashbacks and seeing me on the street, and then I've got danger because when you're young and you're only thinking about yourself, you know. But that's part of my teacher, you know, you have to think always about the people you're responsible for. But I did it when I was young and incautious and didn't make a hell of a lot of money at it. But I did have, you know, a plan. And this is where also understanding strategy. And, you know, Miyamoto Musashi used to have this idea he called crossing at the ford. And what that means is when you come to a river, you don't just jump in the river to try to get across. You walk up river a little bit, you walk down river a little bit, you see, oh, here it's a little shallower, maybe there's some rocks. You find the ford, you cross at the ford. And so you have to understand the situation that you're in. Like when I was bouncing, it was a great advantage for me to not get made as a bouncer.
Right.
So if they
Right.
don't make me as a bouncer, then I'm like a ninja, right?
Yeah, they never see you coming.
So-
That's right.
So I had to throw one guy out once who was, I mean, this guy was a center for the college basketball team. I mean, he was huge. He was like, I don't know, 6'8", 6'9", something like that. And I'm like 6.5 of an inch, not quite 6'1". And sitting at the bar, a girl walks by with her cigarette and brushes his shoulder. And I don't know how many he'd had on, but he decides it's the guy sitting next to him.
Oh, wow.
Who's been giving him bad vibes the whole night, I guess, he decides. And this poor guy next to him just drinking his beer at the bar. And then this guy, huge guy, right? His fist had to be 2 of mine, right? Just wham into the face, flies this guy off of this bar stool. So these are like a high bar stool. So you can stand at the bar or sit, right? This guy, like the hand of God, he doesn't know what the hell just happened, but he sees this guy coming over him, and the guy picks up one of these bar stools like King Kong or something, and the guy sort of dodges around the bar behind the waitress stations, and so the guy throws down the stool when he sees he doesn't have a good clear shot at him, and he goes to go around the waitress station. And that's when I come from up behind him. And have you ever seen the cowboys when they wrestle steers, where they jump up? And it's not a huge steer, but they get him by the horns and kind of come up from behind, and then they steer him. The way my teachers taught me was, this is the headquarters.
Right.
If you capture the general,
Right.
whole army, you won.
Right.
Right. And so I basically leapt up on this guy, got him in a headlock, and went all the way down and bent him over as much as I could. And I know there's about 5 good escapes to a headlock, right? And I know them all, and he didn't know any of them.
Right. You're too busy being surprised.
So then another guy just comes behind and pushes us out, and we go right out the front doors, and there's some posts there, and I just lock in against this post. And the guy is screaming, he's freaking out, he's grabbing my pants, and I think he was doing coke too. I don't think it was just so he had this energized kind of, drunks are usually easy because they're slow and they kind of signal everything before they do it. But if somebody's on something that speeds their clock up, they can be more of a challenge. They don't always feel pain.
Right.
And so anyway, I hold the guy, and I was young. I said, you chill out. I'm going to let you go. And I let him go. But as I stand up, I kind of spin so that when he stands up, I'm actually over here on the right, and he sees this poor guy standing in front of him.
Oh, man.
He decides that he's me, and he dives on this guy over the bushes into the parking lot. And this guy he was there to try to get a job as a bartender, and he was just helping the situation. So now him and the original guy and this guy are all 3 running around in the parking lot, all 2 of the guys trying to nail the original guy. And I'm running around in between them, just trying to mess up everybody's action so nobody gets hurt. Right. And then the police roll up, and 4 cops grab this guy, and they stuff him in the police car and go away. Right.
Wow.
And then he comes back to the bar the next day with a neck brace on, claiming that I had injured him.
Of course.
But I'm good enough, and it was in those days already, that I know I didn't injure him, and he didn't have any medical proof, because there was nothing they could find, So, but anyway, so having a plan is good. But what I did was I crossed at the ford. He didn't see me coming. He didn't know that I was somebody that was going to be a problem for him. I right away captured the headquarters. I didn't stand like, okay, we're going to do, we're going to box and see who. No, I'm not going to. I don't want a fair fight with a guy who's 6'9". Are you crazy? Last thing in the world. So you have to make a plan. You have to understand and use the setting. And that's part of the whole fighting without fighting, right? You're using the whole strategic situation so that you win, even though maybe you have less troops.
Gotcha.
Maybe you have less power. Maybe you have, but you always think 2 steps ahead. And that's why if don't drink, for God's sakes. If you're in a situation where you're going to have to be depending on your own wits to keep alive,
Right.
you can't afford to drink. Do that at home. Do that when you're
Right.
safe behind your locked door. You know, I mean, that's
Yeah.
so many problems. You know how many rattlesnake bites are involved with alcohol? It's one of these crazy stories. Hold my beer.
Yeah, look, you got that liquid courage, as we call it. That
Yeah.
liquid courage. All of a sudden now I'm stronger, and I'm, yeah. Okay. So,
But
Brian, I was
it's
wondering, you telling the story, and I know all your skills from, through the arts and all. Do you have to register yourself? Is that something that is real if you know, because
the real
you're in a fight is different than me being in a fight, because I don't have no training, but you have training.
Well, the thing about the legal system is that worst case scenario, you defend yourself, you end up in front of a jury of your peers.
Allegedly.
And it's not like there's a law that says that you have to be licensed or anything. But what the prosecutor may try to do is they may try to say you have the skills to just kill people with your hands. And so when you did that, you knowingly knew that you were doing that. And you chose to do that, and that makes it intentional.
Right.
But there's 5 things to self-defense. And it's good if you're in a situation where you may have to defend yourself. It's good for you to know those 5 things. But it has to do with imminence and proportionality. Unless I'm really in fear for my life, I can't use fatal techniques on somebody, right? I have to. And here's the thing: is morally, do I want that on my conscience?
Right.
Better is, well, there's another situation. I don't think we talked about this when my kid was having raves at my school. And two kids from 2 different sides of town, the south side and the west side, they had a difference of opinion. And I noticed in this packed room that there's my son in between these 2 guys, and the one guy is loaded up to launch. And I just happened to get there as he's about to pull the trigger, and I get him, in the sleeper basically, and just keel haul him right out the door. Right. It was like old times. Right. And he was, pissed off and freaked out and went racing off. And then I knew some kids that knew him that were part of that group. And I said, hey, I want you to tell him something for me. Can you guess what I told them?
I took it easy on him.
No, I told him, I want you to tell him I apologize. I apologize for having to do that. But, and I understand that you were standing up for your homie, and I totally appreciate that. Like, I totally stand for that. I got you on that. But this is my Kung Fu school. I can't let a beatdown go down in my Kung Fu school, for God's sake. Right. So I just want you to know, I apologize that I go down that way, but and why did I have to do that? Not only was that appropriate,
absolutely,
but I had just delivered a big yang to this kid, big old yang. So now the only way I was going to get things back to calm was I had to do a big yin. And you know what happened? The rave went on, and about 2 hours went by, and then he came back. He apologized to me for raising ruck in my school. And I was like, okay, bro, don't worry. I get it. And I know what you're trying to do. And I'm not trying to run any number on you, but we just can't do it that way.
Can't do it here.
Can't do it here. Right. And, but and that's the thing, is in a conflict, you have to leave the other person a place to stand, right?
Say that.
You gotta have a place to stand. You don't want to push this to the nth. You make your message, you draw your line in the sand, and then you don't need to be cruel and unusual, because here's the thing that people don't realize. Okay, so I'm 5th Dan black belt in one lineage, and then I study with all these other masters. I got all these different chops. I have bounced, and I've competed, and I've been through all these different things. And the situation is, the way my teachers told me is, they said, if people know you have power, you have to make such a beautiful personality so that they never fear you. They always think, boy, if shit goes down, I hope he's here. They never are thinking, oh my God, if that guy's here, I'm going to be like, and then they're going to be nervous somehow.
Yeah.
People, even if they got a big smile on their face every time they see you, if they feel disempowered by you, that's going to be in there, man. And it's going to come back. It's somehow in the flow of things, people are going to resent that. You have to show that you're going to bend over twice as far as anybody else.
That's right.
So that if something goes down, they go, I know him. I know he was not the bully there.
That's
I
right.
know he was. I will borrow money to bet on that, because I've seen him in this and this and this and this, and I know this dude is as solid as they ever come.
That's right.
Only then can you afford to carry that kind of power.
Yeah.
And that's why it's always wants to be, you don't swagger around with that, right? You got to be very humble, right?
Absolutely.
Self-effacing like melting ice is what Lao Tzu used to say. Right.
That's true.
And, and that's just really that's been the deal. It has never led me wrong,
Yeah.
And I didn't come up with this on my own. I had teachers that were remarkable people, and they knew this because they lived it, and they lived it through shit that I thank the Lord I have never had to.
Gotcha. When Edgy was just saying that, I was just reminded of one of my many jobs in my life, but as a correction officer.
Oh, there you go.
You're in there with inmates, and I treated everybody the same. I mean, 100%. They all were men when you walked in. You'll be a man when you walk out. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
And the big thing was, I know that if I do cross or say something, that you're going to have to save face. And now we got something going on. So I have to, so you watch what you say. Not that you're afraid or anything like that, but you just know, if I hit the wrong note, you're going to have to respond, because you're not responding to me. You're responding to the other 90 inmates in there, that they can't see you being soft. They can't see you being weak. And because of that, it makes it tough sometimes, because, you just don't get to say what you want out your mouth. So I've had a situation very similar to what you were saying, like it happened inside your school, where I had an inmate and we're standing toe to toe. And I'm like, I can't back down, because then I got 90-something inmates saying, all right, he's a weak officer, and he came back down. I'm like, okay, it's going to be what's going to be right here.
Right.
And the good thing was the yard officers, the people that was in the yard, came up to my pod, and I popped them in, and they came in, and it all went away.
Oh, nice.
Probably about an hour later, that inmate came down just one-on-one with me, and he apologized. He was like, man, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying. I was just tired, wanted to get to my cell. I fully understand. I should not have said what I said out my mouth to you, and I understand. So again, it's that, you setting it right, because I know why you did what you did, and I can't back off. So why I did what I did.
Exactly.
And because we have that understanding, we can move on with our life and not have any other problems with each other.
Right.
But had we had to prove each other, it just been ugly. It would have been ugly.
Exactly. And nobody wins.
Yeah, no one wins. 100%.
Yeah. Have you heard about the New Mexico State Penitentiary, south of Santa Fe?
No, I have not.
It had a famous prison riot back in the day that was pretty horrific. I used to teach Tai Chi in the state pen there, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
All right. Yeah.
And I would just get locked in a ward, and but everybody they knew I didn't have to be there.
Right.
That I was there actually for them. For
them. You're bringing something to them.
And these guys, they would have protected me no matter what. I
100%.
never felt like I was in danger at all. you know.
Right.
And I taught there for quite a while. I was just teaching Tai Chi. I wasn't obviously teaching any combatives. But they, it was something different. It was a little bit of the outside on the inside, which that's like that's worth something to them.
And the thing is, you're right. And I don't want to lose that privilege of someone from the outside coming in and teaching me anything.
Yeah.
So a lot of them would give you nothing but respect, for sure.
Yeah. And then eventually they lost the privilege.
It happens.
It happens.
It happens.
But I did my part. I tried to help things.
So I don't want to switch gears too much, Brian, but you said that you did metal work. So you said full size or life size horses in metalwork. How did this?
Yeah. Well, I started out and I was running a school in Santa Fe, and a guy came who was a martial artist who had been a champion in Northern Italy. And it's really funny because we do a really loose, relaxed style. And this guy, he looked through the window and he said, "Oh yeah, they're weak," he said, because we weren't all robotic. So then he goes to another teacher who was an old guy who could feel what a clasher this guy was. And he's like, "Oh, have you gone to Brian's school?" He says, "Yeah, I saw him. They're weak." He says, "Did you fight with him?" He goes, "No, I just looked in the window." He says, "Oh, you should go fight with him." Right? And I used to have this happen regularly as part of the deal. So anyway, this guy comes and he ends up fighting with one of my senior students. And he'd come in, and every time he'd pick his leg up to throw a kick, he'd get thrown on the ground over and over and over and over. And then he's like, "Okay, I got to figure out what these guys are doing." So he came, and I was not a businessman. I was young. I was in a small town. All my teachers that came, they said, "You got to move to Albuquerque. You're never going to make it here." And so I'd struggle with the rent, and I'd struggle just to stay alive. And I ended up, I guess I was in the process of having a kid, my first kid. And this guy that came, who'd been in Northern Italy, he was there as a goldsmith. And he was a Rhode Island School of Design student who had gone there to work for Bulgari and to work under a master goldsmith. So he said, "Well, these guys are paying me to set up this company. Why don't you come work for me?" And I think he paid me $1,000 a month, which in those days was like the best deal I had, especially out here, because we're in the poorest state in the Union. And it's been that way my whole time here. But so that's how I learned goldsmithing. And I started out as a goldsmith, and then he ended up working for Harry Winston and for Petit Salon in Trump Towers in New York City. And then he went to California finally, and he was into different alloys. So we did blue gold, which was came out of an old Italian goldsmithing text, and it looks like a blue bottle fly. That shiny, deep midnight blue, like a navy, but shiny. And then he also came up with an alloy of platinum that could hold a brilliant diamond just like with two fingers, instead of having a whole basket around it so you don't lose it, which is the traditional way. And he calls it a tension ring. And those tension rings are still available today. He unfortunately died in a motorcycle accident some years back, but his daughter is still running the company. And he was like an alchemist goldsmith. His name was Stephen D. Kretschmer. And so he taught me kind of like the think method for how do you make things. And once I learned that, then I was like, well, there's no stopping me now, right? And so I built houses, and I ended up working for a sculptor, and she would do these armatures, and her kids and my kids were friends, and I saw these armatures, and I was like, I can weld you those things if you're spending all your time doing them. And they went on vacation, and she left me the buzz box, and I had her 4 or 5 of these finished when she came back. And so I got a little job doing that for a while, and they moved away. And so I've gone and done a lot of different things. And my kids are, they kind of learned how to make stuff too. So my youngest son, he makes electric guitars called Quantars. And he's got a quantars.com where you can see his designs. All of them are one of a kind, custom. And then his brother fabricates metal also. He makes gates and different home fixtures for people and stuff. So they're all artists. They all came up with that hands-on. And you know, for me, I wanted to be able to do something that I didn't have somebody standing over me. I didn't want to punch a 9 to 5. I didn't want people telling me you can't listen to this kind of music, or you can't take an hour off if you want, or all that stuff that people try to do when they want to micromanage your creativity. I wanted to just produce a product, and the product has a value, and the value stands alone. There's a piece of turquoise, there's a piece of silver or gold, an Australian opal or something, and that's got a market value. And you may even like it because, right? And so it's got an appeal and it's got a value. You don't care what music I listened to when I made it, and whether I cut the stone at 3 a.m. or whether I took 3 days off before I made it, right? Or any of that micromanagement. That I got to manage all of that as long as I was productive enough over my time period to keep everybody fed, which, you know, I had a good 15, 20 years where I was really pedaling my butt off to keep everybody fed. But, you know. Yeah. But you can't have independence and expect people to lavish you with riches unless you're a real genius. And I'm, you know, I do okay, but I'm not that kind of genius.
But to have your time, having your time is a replacement. I mean, you can't do anything, you know, better than that. To have your time,
that's
control.
And it lets me figure out what do I want to do next. You know, like I'd done all this 3D stuff, but I had never done 2D. Two-dimensional painting of any kind. Color was kind of beyond me. And then my mother-in-law died, and she had been a watercolor painter, so I got left all these watercolors. And we had YouTube. So with YouTube, it's like I could probably build a nuclear reactor with YouTube if I wanted, right? So watercolor paint. I learned how to play blues guitar with YouTube.
Wow.
You know? And the same thing, because YouTube doesn't care whether I'm doing it at 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning or middle of the afternoon or on a Sunday, or whether I have to listen to the same damn thing 6 times before I get it through my thick skull. YouTube doesn't care. YouTube loves it if I have to watch it 6 times, right?
Especially whoever the content creator is, because he's getting all those watch hours every time you look at it again.
Exactly. You know, so if there's any message there, it's like, boy, you can do anything you ever wanted now more than ever before.
It's all there.
Like knock yourself out, you know, or as they say in South America, dale, you know, give it, you know, do it.
So now I'm going back. I got 2 questions for you. I know Walt, you up there burning.
No, I'm good, man. I'm just taking it all in, man. It's like he's ringing bells for me.
The goldsmithing, right? I need you to explain that a little bit for me. I want to make sure I got the right. What does it mean, or what is it to be a goldsmith?
Well, you know, I used to. We used to make wedding rings, and we used to basically we'd start out with what they call casting grain, which is 24 karat that they like melted and dropped into water, so you get like little BBs. And we'd alloy it with silver and with copper. Now, if I use very little silver and I put a bunch of copper in, I get red gold, what they call red gold. If I use a lot of silver and just a little bit of copper, I get green gold. Well, we were adding, then there's other things like you can put nickel in, platinum in, and those will get you white golds.
Right.
And they all have slightly different properties. There's nickel whites, there's palladium whites. And then there's this thing that we dug out of an old Italian text to make blue gold, which was very, very trippy. And it turned out to be difficult to make. We had to do it. We had to do it under an inert gas like argon or nitrogen, and it was very finicky. But you know, we sold it to Harry Winston, who was actually using it for pieces. This was, you know, years ago. But so that's what we were doing as goldsmiths. And basically, you know, I ended up going and making another business where I learned how to cut semi-precious stones. So I would cut lapis lazuli. I cut a lot of Australian opals, which are really sweet, really amazing stones. And then I'd put them in different designs. I had probably 100 different designs in my first year of doing my own work. And but I apprenticed with someone who was doing that. He was a goldsmith and a stone setter, or a stone cutter, which is, you know, certain stones, what we call semi-precious stones, are like turquoise or lapis or sugilite, and they're softer. They're not precious stones like rubies and sapphires, where you have to cut them with a very specific type of a diamond plate, and it almost looks like a record player, so you can control the facets. But we're talking about hand shaping stones and doing inlays, a lot like the traditional Southwestern jewelry that the Native Americans make. And so we kind of took a lot of that methodology and just did more contemporary designs with it. And we'd sell in California. And, you know, like I did a belt buckle where the belt had a tip set where the head was a rattlesnake head.
I've seen boots like that in Mexico. And the toe of the boot, rattlesnake.
And he bites his tail, and in the tail is a silver tip that has shot in it that goes. And so there was a store in California. I knew anytime I had a trippy, one-of-a-kind custom idea for a tip set, he'd buy it. I knew.
Yeah.
And I bet the store's still there. Really good store called Falcon Head in Brentwood. That's where it was.
Wow.
But free advertising. But you know, they did me well. They were righteous folks, and this was, of course, 30 years ago, so they're probably not even there. But you know, there are fields where your creativity can get you noticed, and you can get, you know, distinguished. The thing with jewelry, and especially with goldsmithing, is that, like, when I was a goldsmith, I can remember gold was about 200 an ounce. 200. And I remember a goldsmith, we were having a conversation because we were all in a building that had a lot of goldsmiths in it for local shops, and they were all kind of situated in there. And I remember a bunch of us sitting around talking, and I remember a guy saying, you know, one of these days, all this gold is going to be worth like 400 an ounce. And everybody sitting around went, no way, not in our lifetime. And these guys, they were career guys, right? They had no idea what was ahead. And I heard it just like, didn't it just come up to like 4,000 an ounce?
Yeah.
People be coming at your teeth with pliers for that, man.
But remember, during the 80s, a lot of people, it seems like gold the pawn shops were making a killing back then, you know, when the value was jumping, the dollar value was jumping. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
And this may not even apply to you, maybe just for us mortals out here, the rest of us mortals. Tell me two things in life that you wish you had experienced and haven't. You know,
that I wish I had and that I had,
but you didn't. You didn't go through with it. It's like, man, I should have done that. I should have learned to skydive. I should have wrestled alligators. I should have, you know, that thing that you, not a regret, but just something like, man, but now maybe it's the time is like,
you know,
I'm not in that shape now to do that.
When I was real young, I dropped out of college in my senior year, like one semester away from graduation.
I know that guy.
And even then, I knew that I would be, should I be so lucky as to make it to have such a long white beard, that I would be sitting back regretting not having done that if I didn't. And I mean, my Zen master told me to go back and get my college degree, and everybody, all conventional wisdom told me to do that. And honestly, I have never regretted it. It was the right thing to do, and it was a leap. But I've always had that idea, you know, you better do this. And look at the places I've ended up. They're the places that you end up if you don't wuss out, for lack of a better term, right? If you don't leap. And I guess I've always feared not leaping.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that I did things foolishly. right?
Absolutely.
Like
Right.
I went into this whole thing with doing a lot of hallucinogens with these curanderos in South America, right? But I didn't just say, "Oh, it seems like a great idea. Let's try it." You know, I mean, uh, I did my due diligence and I did my research because I only got one brain, right?
Right.
And I don't want to do, you know, something silly. I mean, and I'm very cautious. I didn't get vaccinated, and because I'm that. I mean, and I taught at a school for Chinese medicine. So my understanding of the human biological system is relatively nuanced. And but I'm not, you know, incautious about these types of things. You know, people ask me about drugs, and I don't drink even. Like, yeah, I've done a bunch of ayahuasca, more than most people you'll meet, for sure.
I was just about to say that's a
And but I didn't just like do it at a party. I did it with people who were part of a lineage, who were trained by people who did it, who did the due diligence. And there's within that approach to things, I'm one of the very conservative voices. You know, I used to, I don't do it anymore because getting medicine is so difficult, but I used to do ceremonies with people, and, you know, I'm not going to let you just go off when you're still high. And I'm not going to, like, I got to know what your story is when you're coming into this. I need to know what you're working on. I need to know, like, we're not just doing this cavalierly. This is something that demands responsibility on both of our parts. And you know, we got to be sure we're doing this for the right reasons. And, you know, that's why, like, down in South America, when somebody got told that they needed to do a ceremony with the curandero, they were terrified. It was the last thing they wanted to hear. They wanted to get a prescription for some a vegetable herbal thing that would just fix their problem. They didn't want to have to go through the mental thing. But, you know, this is the same story when I say that you go to a contemplative discipline and what you end up meeting is yourself. But, you know, one of the things that they say within Islam is that God hides himself with himself.
Right.
And so there's always this kind of an unveiling, right? Or but with the idea that we're moving towards what the Sufis call tasting, right? Which is that first-hand experience. And so, you know, so with the medicine, I think that there is a tendency in the West to think that it's the medicine that does the work. It's not. It's the mind that does the work. And if you haven't been trained how to do this, like I went through, you know, 10 years, and I think I mentioned this maybe before, that after 10 years, I saw things that were like, get out of here, that back in my day one were just punking on me. I mean, completely punk. But I had developed a capacity in those dimensions that I could understand things now, and I could fend for myself now. It's like the difference between going in the woods when you don't know what's in the woods and going in the woods when you're a skilled woodsman.
Right.
You know what a bear track looks like, and you know that climbing a tree ain't going to help, right? You know,
or running.
Yeah. And if you got to run downhill, you know,
right.
or just run faster than the other guy.
That's it. There you go.
There you go. Run faster than the other guy.
You not be the fastest, just don't be the slowest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, you know, so I think the important thing, though, is that in all these disciplines, and the reason we say that you meet yourself is because that is the vehicle. Like it's through understanding yourself. Like, for example, one of your questions, Jack, that you had sent me was about my being an orphan and what impact that had. And one of the interesting things is that if you had asked me during any of my earlier life if it had any impact on me, I probably would have said no. And I would have, or I might have said, you know, intellectually, I know that it must have, but it's not been anything on my screen, something like that. And then I get into maybe my 50s, early 50s. And I don't remember exactly what catalyzed it, but I had done a lot of this other work. And I realized, like an aha, that not only did this have an influence on me, but it had such a pervasive influence on me that literally, because my whole deal happened on day one. Like, I wasn't someone that knew my mother, and then at 1 year old, we were separated or something. So I had no memory. I had no connection, no energetic, anything. Boom. When I was out, that was it. Hasta la vista, baby. And she actually went on, she told me later when we met in my 30s, she told me that she had told everybody that I had died.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought, that's a little weird. It's also a little weird to tell me that now.
Right, to tell me that now.
Especially, I'm trained as a psychotherapist, so that makes me think you probably kind of wished that I had.
There it is. He's
right?
projecting.
You know,
Right, little
so,
projection.
but it is what it is, right? You know, and but so what I realized was that it's like, ask a fish if it's in water. Doesn't know what the hell you're talking about.
Right.
It's always in water. My situation happened from when I was pre-verbal. I didn't have handles for anything, on anything. But I was able to deduce, being trained as a psychotherapist, going through all the years of shamanism and all these things that are self-revealing. I was able to understand what a baby gets from a mother in its first weeks and months of life.
Okay.
Right.
And that it has to do with the very creation of a self and the impulse for the self to have value to yourself, because you have value to your mother and she mirrors that to you regularly, right? Well, one of the things they told me when I was young is they said, oh, you were such a good baby, you never cried, right? Well, one of the things that means is that in the orphanage I was in, the crying didn't really do much.
Do anything.
Right.
It didn't.
You
No
know,
one came
everybody's
to save
crying,
you.
doesn't do
Right.
shit. At some point, you just save the juice, right?
Right.
You know? And so, and then when I was with my parents, when I finally was adopted, my adopted mother went through what I think they finally decided was associated with her thyroid. She went through like a depression and was hospitalized for a while. So, and then they even said it was like postpartum depression, even though she hadn't had the baby. But so between the orphanage and whatever that movie was, because this is the other thing about being an orphan, is everybody gaslights you. Everybody gaslights you. Great song by Pearl Jam, Alive, right? It's all about this exact thing, right? But you're alive, right? Because everybody's deal is, well, you're good now, right? You know, like I went through a whole thing that was studying. I read a book that was all about the effects of being an adopted child, all the psychological dynamics and all that. And my mother was still alive at the time. And I thought, well, maybe she could understand. And my mother, I say, not my biological mother, although she was also alive, but I mean my adopted mother, who somehow never understood why we never missed, why we never, you know, because like other people, they feel very warm and fuzzy about their mothers in general. And I got none of that. I got nothing there, just nothing. And in my older life, my adopted mother, like if she went to touch me, I would immediately retract. Like there was none of that positive bonding that goes on with, and I have my own kids. So now I can see, well, what wasn't there and what was there and what, you know, but so that imprints. And this is one of, you know, this is why on my show I like to talk about which is a thing I swiped from Jan Cox. Go look him up. He talks about how we're all born in a room with our foot nailed down. and we're born in a room of a specific house on a specific street in a specific place of a specific town. In most of our lives, we go around in a circle around that nailed down foot. And the movie changes a bit, right? Although not really, because it's always circling that. And he says, most of us will never go through the effort to pull that nail up.
Out of it. Yeah.
Well, it turns out we all sort of, for our own good, we need to go through some effort to pull that nail up. As part of pulling that nail up is being able to bridge with other people, right? And seeing yourself in these larger contexts. But understanding that because you started out nailed down there, things look a certain way from you in that place, right? And the way that I've described this before is you guys are old enough to remember what a record player is.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
100%.
Well, so if we had one sitting between us, I stuck a candle out on the first song, you would see the candle go this way, and then you'd see it go that way, and you'd see it go this way, and you'd see it go that way. And if I were to ask you, you'd say, yeah, it's going back and it's going forth.
Right.
But now if we were to nail it down a little tighter and the player was in between us, your back would be my fourth.
Right.
And my back would be your fourth. And then if Walt is sitting off at right angles to us, he's going to think we're both crazy because his back starts halfway through one of our backs or fourths, and it ends through the other half. And so see, now we're clearly, like, I just looked, right? All I did was I'm sitting here, I looked at the thing, and I saw back and forth. So you can't say I'm making that up.
Right.
So you must be wrong.
It's perspective.
Right?
It reminds me of the Robin Harris joke. The guy's drunk, and he asks him, where's the other side of the street? And he says, it's over there. And he said, that's funny. I was just over there. They told me it was over here. You know, but that's it. And so it's perspective. And
who's the guy who knows what's really going on?
Right.
The one who believes us all, who realizes that I better go up and look down on this thing from above. Right. And what do I find? There's no back. There's no forth. And y'all were going to get in a fight about it, but there's nothing there, right? But look at how passive we were in that perception because of our perspective. Well, that perspective of having our own little back and forth, that's our foot nailed down. Right? And once we pull that nail up, now we're able to actually, because our only clue to solving this problem was if we admitted that everybody was right.
Right. There you go.
Because that's what forced us up to look down at the table from on top. And that's this, we're stronger together, right?
There you go.
We each help each other. It's like we keep coming, the themes return to you, right? That's from our main song, Dream On, right? That's where Focus Ages comes from. All the themes return to you. And this is one of those important themes that, and I think physicists had to do this to come up with a theory, because only a theory that satisfies everybody sitting at the table is going to be the thing that explains everything, right? And so that's why they have to have these scientific debates about what it is, because all the issues have to be hammered out in a consensus before you get the right picture. So that's kind of the way that I think about it. And we're the way human life works, we're not an island. Right. We have the part of the formula. One of the philosophers we talk about is a guy named Emmanuel Levinas. We talk about him on our show, and he was in a German prison camp, and he writes about ethics. And what he writes about a lot is our encounter with the other. And that the other, one of the things I like to talk about in my show also, a frequent reference I'll make reference to is the shoreline of Norway. Okay. And what the idea of when I refer to the shoreline of Norway, what I'm talking about is if we look on a map, we'll see zigs and zags on the shoreway, and the map might tell us, okay, the coastline of Norway is 1,700 miles long or something. I don't even know what it is. But if we were to look at that map and we were to zoom in, we'd see that sections on the map that look like straight lines, they really have all these little inlets and peninsulas, and that adds a lot of distance in there.
Right.
And so that if we zoom in on one of those sections that looks like it's flat, what's going to happen? The same thing again is going to happen. There's going to be little things in and little things out. And so you know what the answer is here. The coastline of Norway is infinite.
Right.
What we're measuring is our resolution of our measurement. That's all we're getting here. The actual reality escapes us. And that's what we do in life. We make a mental map, and every map we get, well, my map of Big Jack and Walt and your map of Brian is like this. It's like the coastline of Norway on a map. There's a lot of little inlets that we could do this for, till the cows come home, and we still wouldn't flatten out all of those because the other person is also in infinity, just like the coastline of Norway, right? So it's in our according to Levinas, it's in our relationship with the other. That's where we meet infinity. That's which for them, for a lot of philosophers, that's God.
Right.
The ineffable. We can't speak it. We can't think it. We can't catch it because it has so much detail. And that is what we are for each other. But we don't typically get that.
No.
Right. And that's really our challenge on this plane, is to really get who we are together and individually. That's why Africa blows my mind. That's a whole nother thing to talk about.
But what you're saying is so true. But is it really that hard if you're self-aware? If you take the time to understand that you know a way but not the way, and you're honest with yourself, and you're respectful, and you consider the other person's position, right? Is it really that hard to get to this level of understanding? I mean, all you've done is challenge yourself to think outside of the proverbial box. So, so with all the information we have now, we have a whole generation that is more siloed than ever, because like the saying goes, no man is an island. And even when it comes down to your education, you let your and I think Mark Twain, and I'm getting ready to blow his quote, but he never let his formal education, his formal schooling, get in the way of his education, right?
Absolutely right.
So it's like when you wake up in the morning and you are determined to put Jack water in the way, you're determined to look at the water and say, don't. The brain doesn't even understand the word don't. My brain doesn't anyway understand the word don't, because when you say don't, your brain thinks, oh, okay, that's what you're giving your attention to, that's what you're giving your energy to, that's where we're going. So if people would just take a moment to just realize that we don't have all the answers, and to challenge yourself and to hear other ideas. But most people get offended when you ask them questions about their ideas that they are ready to die for. So what's the answer? How did we get to this point as humans? How did we get here?
Well, the way that I read it is there's this old philosophical idea they call the great chain of being.
Okay.
And it's made up basically of 4 miracles. The first miracle is that there is anything.
Okay.
Fair enough, right?
Okay.
Second miracle is that there's life.
Okay.
We know how to take things from being alive into, we know how to make them inanimate. That's easily done with a blunt object, right? But we don't know how to go from stuff that's not alive and make it alive. That's a fundamental leap we don't have. That's still a miracle.
Okay.
And then we have another one coming, which is we have stuff that's alive, but slime mold is alive, right?
Okay.
Athlete's foot is alive, right?
It's alive, right? Yeah.
But then we have this higher thing that shows up that is consciousness. And that is, where does consciousness show up? And the way the philosophers have been saying this is something is conscious if there is something that it is like to be you.
Okay.
So if we say, well, there's something that it is like to be a barnacle.
Right.
It
On
opens,
the
it
bottom of a boat,
closes, it
right.
knows whether the ocean is there or not. And so
Mhm.
there must be some rudimentary experience of what it is like to be a barnacle. It must be conscious to that degree.
Mm.
And so that consciousness, that's a real leap, because we know that stuff's alive, but we don't know how to make unconscious live stuff into conscious live stuff. That's beyond us. Another leap, miraculous leap.
But as people, we know when we're doing these things, we know when we are consciously.
Well, that's what I'm getting to.
There you go. Okay. Help
Yeah.
me with that.
Because the fourth step is we have consciousness, but the step after that is consciousness, conscious of consciousness.
Okay.
Your dog, he's conscious, right? Your
Okay.
cat is conscious. Your goldfish is conscious. I
Right.
got these goldfish. I catch flies in the house. They're out in the stock tank outside,
Mhm.
and I throw these flies, and boy, they're on it.
Right.
And every morning they're hanging out like, bro, where are my flies? I'm like
Right.
the fly king as far as they're
Right.
concerned. Right?
Okay.
So they're conscious, but they don't realize that they're conscious. They can't look at themselves and say, okay, I'm really pissed off right now, or
Mhm.
I'm really bummed out right now, or I'm in a high state of expectation now, or in a ceremony, you can't look and say, oh, I'm freaking out, right? Or in a fight, this guy's kicking my ass, right?
Mhm.
In martial arts, we call that the second attention.
Okay.
The first attention is the one in there fighting the fight.
Mhm.
The second one is the one that's observing that, saying, better not get don't take that bait, right? He's hanging it out there on the hook. Don't take it. You know you want it. Don't do it, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes that takes the voice of our teacher.
Right.
Or it might, but the idea is it's reflexive. You're looking at your state of your awareness. And once you develop that as a mentality, that's why I say you start a contemplative discipline. What do you see? Yourself.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's what you're seeing. And you'll see your mind squirm like a toad. You're trying to sit. You're just sitting in the Zen mat, in the Zen center, right? The Zendo. And you're just breathing and you're breathing. And then your brain just goes off, right? It's got its whole own program. Well, what's that about? Like, where did that all come from? What's the chatter? What is the compulsions here? When are the times that I lose my consciousness of my consciousness? That's when I'm going to get my ass beat right? Or that's when I'm going to take taken advantage of. That's when I'm going to get manipulated. Right? When a con man takes advantage of you, he's made you lose consciousness of your consciousness. He baited you in, your eyes roll back in your head, and you fell for it. Right?
But usually when you get punished on that, when you get punished, when the discipline comes in, I mean, whether it's overeating, smoking, gambling, fighting, cursing, whatever your thing is, then we all have it. Okay.
Yeah.
At some point when the consequences come through, that's when we like, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I mean, because you knew it from the beginning, but the moment you don't control your thoughts, your mind, your actions, you've pretty much lost it. And most of that, to me, and this is just me, and I'm just, I know this is not the rest of the world, but when I don't stay present and take care of my business at this moment, and I worry about what's coming down the line, what may happen, what did happen, that's when I make my worst decisions. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm a serial killer or anything, but most of it's just not staying in the moment and handling the business that's in front of me, being present where my feet are. And but me knowing that makes it somewhat easier for me. It doesn't make it easy because I'm human, but once I'm aware of that, I'm like, it is easier, so to speak, as opposed to the devil made me do it.
Now, the Buddhists say that and they have studied the mind.
Okay.
And they say there's three things that'll take us out of that groove.
Okay.
Now, the two that are the obvious ones, I will refer to as the whip and the carrot.
Okay.
Right. Which is something that's baiting me out.
Right.
The carrot. I want, is one of my teachers would summarize it. He didn't have a lot of English, but that's I want.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would usually imitate an American eating an oversized hamburger. Right. This is the nature of the wanting mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the other one is aversion, the whip. And that is the things that I'm afraid of, the fears that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's two, and the Buddhists love to do this, when it's one, it's called avidya, ignorance.
Okay.
When it's two, it's called attraction and repulsion.
Okay.
Positive and negative. When it's three, it's called attraction, aversion, which is repulsion, and bewilderment. That's the third one.
Can't figure
And
it
so
out.
those tend to be the three things that move us off our groove.
Okay.
And part of the Zen practice is to always be here
Centered.
now in the groove, right? In that groove. And which means that it's a balancing act, right? Because it doesn't mean that you're going to act artificially.
Right.
You still have to have a spontaneous self, but that self-awareness still has to come into that moment.
Right.
And I think that I don't think you can act with ethically if you don't have that gear and you haven't been shifted into that gear. And that's why moral training is so important. And that's why one of my one-string banjo songs is all about virtue. You need to cultivate virtue. And I know that sounds hopelessly naive, but I'm telling you, from someone with a very broad base, I'm telling you this. And this is this is probably worth going into. This is one of my philosophical machines, if you will. Okay. So back in the day, there was a philosopher named Schleiermacher, and he invented what they called hermeneutics. And hermeneutics was all about reading ancient texts or reading religious works. And the idea was, you're reading this thing, but it's probably not your original language, and it was a culture you don't have any ideas about. You don't know what these people were thinking, but you want to get some message, originally religious, out of this, and it's important, so you don't want to screw it up. So the study of hermeneutics started to look at that process of how we do this. And if we look at the way we read a book, last time you read a book, you picked it up, you knew the title, and maybe somebody told you, I should check this out. It's a good book. You have some idea, maybe the picture on the cover, maybe the title. But you have some idea of what the whole book is about. Now you open it up and you read the first page. See the title of the first chapter, you read the first page. Now you go back to your idea of what the whole book was about.
Right.
And now some of the ideas you had, you go, okay, maybe it is about dogs and football players. But some other idea that you might have had, you go, oh no, I didn't even understand that at all, right? So that's going in another direction. Then you go back and you read the second page. Well, now when you're trying to understand the second page, you're putting it in the context of this idea of the whole that you had that was informed by the first page.
Right.
And you go back and forth in this feedback loop, and each new piece fits in that context of your growing idea of the whole, so that you understand better how that piece fits in, as well as how all the other pieces fit in, because now you got these new pieces, right? Until you finally reach the end of the book, and now your understanding of all the pieces and your understanding of the whole they've come together, and now you know what the book is about. So now we have this thing called ontological hermeneutics. We call that feedback loop the hermeneutic circle.
Okay.
The whole, the piece, the whole, the piece, the whole, the piece. Well, now with ontological, ontos is the Greek word for being. And so ontology is the study of being.
Okay.
So the ontological hermeneutic says, okay, life, your life is the book. And the first day that you took breath, that was page 1.
Okay.
You had no fucking idea what this book was about on page 1. It was just a foreign film without subtitles, right? Colors and shit. Right. But then slowly, as the pages added up, you started to get a picture and you started to gain meaning. You started to be able to follow some threads that were going on. And now you've got an idea what the whole is about, right?
But do you really?
Well, that's it. Because why? Because tomorrow, right?
But not only that, it depends on what people put on you. And that takes me back to, like, kids are not inherently bad. They're not inherently racist. They're not inherently, so it depends on what they learned. And with you, when you said you didn't have this certain feeling for your stepmom, your adopted mom, because you didn't require that, because at that point you had done without it, right?
My developmental stage had gone to whatever the next chapter was.
Right. So I guess what I'm saying is, as humans, we're looking for things to be fair, equitable, and decent. And if you're a person who's taking advantage of a system or a situation, a grifter or this or that, like you said, a bully, you're hoping that this bully will understand reason. But if I know, and I'm a bad person, and I know you're dependent on reason and logic, I just work against you. I can work against that. And your pages have taught you that, because you were raised a certain way to believe that if I go to school and get this last credit, I can be successful. And you have lived a tremendous life totally avoiding that. You've learned more outside of school and formal education, than you ever learned in school. So it's like, it's back to, the more we know, the more we realize we don't know. And the smartest person in the world is realizing, I don't know anything.
Right.
So that seems so simple to me. But why don't we practice that in our daily lives as a human race?
I think that that process you're talking about is cultivating wisdom.
Okay.
I think that's what it is.
Okay.
And, and that's why, I think of that when we're talking about a book, it's your idea of what the whole book is about.
Right.
But when we're talking about life, it's this big cognitive model that every experience you have pours into, every book you read pours into, every movie you see pours into. And humans have this amazing supercomputer to sort of build a coherent thing out of all of those pieces and images. And so for me, I think of that, your idea of life as a whole, that gets built like that. I sort of think of that as your base.
Okay.
The thing that you hold every new piece up against to make meaning with it.
Okay.
And so if my base was because I never pulled my foot up, then I've got a very kind of narrow base. Then I'm not going to have as much to reflect on. But if I have a broad experience, right? That's why I went to South America. That's why Africa was important. That's why studying with this teacher and that teacher and this lineage and that lineage, because I want my feet spread wide, right? I want my stance to be stable, because it's so broad, and then I have the best chance when a new piece comes in to put it in the right context.
Right.
Because this idea, and I claim that this is the most important function of philosophy, is the art of interpretation.
Okay.
And there are philosophers who will make the argument that who you are is your interpretation of life.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. Not only that, when you say good and evil, good and bad, high and low, I mean, without one, you can't have the other. I mean, because you can't have hot and cold without having the other, right? Because you have nothing to compare it to. So that's what we interpreted. And then, but the problem is, we have more now distractions, things to distract us, same to pacify us. So you don't have to control the world by war, because our minds are being controlled by scrolls and likes and clicks and just stuff. And so that's just weird to me, man. But I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just, that's, to hear you put this in such simple layman's terms. I'm like, because I know, I mean, you see it all the time. Like, you ask yourself, what? Like, how did you get to that? I mean, because like all the things you have to just totally dismiss to get to this, knowing what I know, how did you get to that? You had to just dismiss everything else and just throw it all away just to get to that point, because clearly, in my opinion, and I'm definitely not a scholar like yourself, you want to be there. That's where you want to be, because that's your comfortable place. Whereas if you just even if it's shopping on Amazon, just, if you just would be uncomfortable or be without for a moment, you will really, really, really fall into your true self, so to speak. And that's where I'm always in search of, because I just want to be in my deathbed saying, man, I wish I should have done this. I could have done this differently. I mean, we all do stuff that we shouldn't do, and we know when we're doing it. So we don't sit there and try to justify it, but we hope when we get away with it, I guess it's kind of what's happening. So thank you for that, man. I appreciate you.
Well, and I, like all of us, I think, always wish I had done better. I wish I'd listened to my teachers a little more closely. I wish I'd worked a little harder, pushed a little bit. And now that may be, that may be bullshit, but I still have that voice, because I know there's a sweet spot in there.
Right.
That, you don't want to make, what do they say? W.C. Fields, if at first you don't succeed, try again, then quit. No use making yourself a damn fool about the thing.
Yeah.
But there is this Buddhist idea of right effort. Okay. And we do have to put out, they say in the lineages, these things are our natural inheritance, these teachings, but we still have to strive to attain them.
Okay.
And that's why they are disciplines. And they're not easy, and, but like one philosopher, Spinoza, says that all things that are excellent and rare are difficult.
Right.
And, and I think that that's maybe the biggest message, is that, that people should be encouraged to try to push themselves a little bit. That there are resources to do that. There are places you can get teachers that will do that for you, and to don't always take the easy way, right? It's the things that well, what's the famous Nietzsche quote? That which does not kill us makes us stronger.
Right. Right.
No, that's it.
Thank you,
look, gentlemen, this has been a pleasure again. And Brian, I know we still scratching the surface. So
my brain is fried.
Well, we covered a lot of territory there.
Yeah, no, we did. And I thank you for being a guest on the Iron Sharpening Iron Show. And, definitely dropping the knowledge that you dropped today.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to ask you before we close this, we're going to close the show out, but just to hang back just a little bit, behind the stage. And, but I want to thank everyone that was here with us today, who came into the comments to chat, to watch this today with Brian McMahon. And on the Iron Sharpening Iron Show, we had a good, I had a good time learning a lot, and I appreciate it. So we ask you to continue to tune in. We're every Wednesday and every Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And we got some wonderful guests still coming up. But at the same time, we can, you can always go back and watch this show again if you want to get more. And now we've dropped in a link several times, your show, your podcast, and your channels, so that they can follow you. It's Tools and Sage. So 100%. But we want to thank you all for being here.
Absolutely.
And tune in for our next episode. Be this Wednesday, live Wednesday. But until then, we're gonna ask everybody to stay sharp, and we talk to you later.
Night.
It's been an honor.
My pleasure.